One of the, I think, biggest phrases which is used, which is mere rhetoric and doesn't articulate or transfer itself into any kind of a lived reality of the women of India, is this term Nari Shakti and women-led development. In fact, if one sees over a period of time, we have been falling very, very dramatically on the global gender index. In fact, now we are 138 out of 146 countries, which is really quite shameful. There is also, of course, the fact that even if you see internationally, whether it's at the world level or even at the G20, on which there was a lot of, a lot of things said about gender, etc., etc. And we have amongst the G20 the lowest female work participation rate. We have the highest gender gap, which is there. And on entrepreneurship, which is talked about so much these days, particularly women's empowerment through financial inclusion, just falls through. If we see India's ranking at the international level, which is a really pathetic 57 out of 65 countries. So all these terms about women-led development, etc., is just not to be taken seriously. And in relation to this issue of Nari Shakti, I'd just like to mention one aspect which we have never faced so much till now, and that is the violence against women, whether it's workplace or whether it is outside workplace. And it's not as if, everybody is gone, something is wrong with the citizens of India, particularly the male citizens. But the fact that violence now is becoming normalized. So if, a man is lynched for cattle, or a Dalit is thrashed for sitting on a horse, the issue of violence against women is a non-issue, seen at the broader level in the context of the current thinking, which is all pervasive. So this issue of Nari Shakti, it doesn't even articulate itself in the budget. And this budget, I really don't know what we are going to get. But of course, there's a lot of wish list. We have been struggling for the issue of gender responsive budgeting and increasing the
So,
allocations, particularly
yeah.
to women's sector over a period of time. Recently there has been this issue, recently meaning only in the last year, that is the PLFS data of 23-24, that there has been an increase in female labor force participation rate. Now, in fact, till 23-24, it has been declining very, very dramatically over a period of time. And whatever this 4 or 5% increase which is there is all primarily because of increase in family workers, that is family labor, unpaid family labor, and that also in the rural sector. So, this issue of, again, coming back to that women-led development, etc., etc., you also need to demystify what is this labor force that really, which we are talking about. Now, within the labor force, if 60%, 60% of women and a significant amount of men, I think 19% is what I've been calculating, are unpaid family workers. That is, they're helping on the farm or helping on enterprises, etc., and not getting paid a penny. Are they really workers, or are they really filling time in the sense of helping increase the family income in an indirect kind of a manner? Also, please let us remember that in the labor force data, what is included is also scheme-based workers. That is all your ASHA workers, Anganwadi workers, drone didis, all your behens, and none of them have a legal status as workers. I mean, the cases have been going on in the Supreme Court and several high courts over a period of time. So at one level, you don't recognize them as workers, including gig and platform. You don't recognize them as workers. But when it comes to data collection, in terms of showing that women participation has increased, they are counted as workers. So this is really a sleight of hand in terms of the increase. Also, if we see over a period of time and the historical context of development of countries, etc., is that there should be reduced labor in the agricultural sector. Now, this, in fact, had been happening till 2010, 11, 4, 5, etc., that the share of women, in particular in agriculture, had been coming down. But now it has increased very dramatically for the first time in the history of independent India. And this is for various reasons. One, of course, is urban jobs is a major issue. But the main, and I think, the kind of data which is given, and if we trace it, it is during the period of 1718 and 2018-19. And this is a direct impact. Let's remember, it's not the issue of COVID, it's the issue of demonetization. And this issue of demonetization triggered a reverse migration of men and of women, in particular, women not going back to the urban areas and staying on in the rural areas. Then comes your pandemic. And here it's not so much pandemic by itself, but a less than empathetic pandemic policy to close a country in 4 hours, where one third of the workers in the country are migrants, is I think, and we remember that long walk home. And I don't think all of us, I think, have been involved in helping the workers who were stranded, men and women. That is never going to get out of our consciousness. I think in terms of what those workers really went through. There is also, of course, several other aspects. One talks about the kind of, I think, skilling which goes on, supposed allocation, so Nari Shakti, entrepreneurship, and all these issues. To name somebody who's self-employed as, self-employment has become what I call a refuge of last resort. If you don't have anything, you pick up 2 baskets of vegetables and go and sit on the main road and sell them. That is not entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship means risk, uncertainty, ability to innovate. None of these definitions of entrepreneurship link to what the self-employed are. In fact, even amongst the MSMEs, or the micro, medium, small, and micro industries, most of them are need-based. In fact, it's calculated that about 90% of these micro enterprises are need-based enterprises. It's not as if they are there for a profit which is to be made. So link this up with the fact that no woman, of course, or man can be non-working. Okay, in the broader context, or participate in the process of production, because most of them are in for survival. So if we see this context in terms of livelihoods and sustenance, I'm not even talking about sustainability, which seems to have gone for a toss. Just in terms of surviving and in terms of sustenance, all have to work at whichever level they get. But this is not any form, we use terms are used like decent work and remunerative work. None of them operate. And the gender differentials are increasing. PLFS government data itself has been reporting all this, that the gender gap between men and women, not that men are getting higher, their wages have also decreased in real terms if we keep the issues of inflation in mind, but that women's wages and earnings have been, whether it's casual or regular workers or self-employed, has been declining much faster than men. And this is only in the last 5 or 6 years that they have been declining. So that is one very, very major issue. And I really don't know how these issues are going to be resolved, because there is a broader contextualization of what I call the institutionalization of inequalities. And this institutionalization of inequalities includes, let us remember, the labor codes, okay, which deny labor rights. They have amalgamated all the labor laws which the trade unions and organizations, men and women together, had fought for 75 years. All right. All of them have been removed. And it says very clearly, for the ease of doing business. Now, labor rights is not for business. Labor rights is to protect the workers from exploitation and from self-exploitation, which really becomes what self-employment is, and also what gig and platform workers are. There are many other issues which are linked to this contextualization. The farm acts which are there, which impact women much, much more. Of course, they impact men, but women more, because 80% of women are in the agriculture, in the rural sector, work in the agricultural sector, which is the highest proportion, which is very much there. There's also, like I said, the issue of skills. But what does it mean? The last budget gave some 3,000 crores for skilling. I mean, what population are we talking about, and how much does it even, not even half, quarter a paisa for the women who need skilling? And this skilling, I think, again reinforces all patriarchal rigidities in every manner. It's what I call the triple P mode, not public-private partnership, but petticoat, pakoras, and pickle. That's all that it teaches women to do. So the issue of women's empowerment and Shakti is certainly very much not there at the ground level. In fact, it's a reversal of whatever little bit had been attained earlier. The budget is concerned, on which there's been a lot of debate, and if we see the gender component of the budget, and this is something which we had fought for from the 10th plan onwards, and we had got quite a bit, so much so that the highest share of gender responsive or gender budget to the overall budget of the budget outlay was the highest in 2011-12, which was itself very low. It was only 6%. Okay, which, like I said, is just not enough. But that has come down to not even 5% of the budget, and this really is a historic low as we are concerned. Even within this gender budget, there has been a sleight of hand, very, very clearly. You know, the gender budget is divided into Part A and Part B. Part A deals with 100% benefits. The other one deals with 30% benefits to women. Now, what has been included in the gender budget, which has no place in gender, is the Awas Yojana, rural or urban, that is a housing scheme. This accounts for 90% of the allocation. And please remember, housing schemes or the names of houses, the owners, it is not only women, it is given to the household. So how does it become a women's scheme is something which is not acceptable. I mean, in economic terms, in rational economic terms, and of course in statistical terms, it is just not acceptable at all. There are also, I think, two or three issues I'd like to mention, because when we talk about gender, it's not as if gender is a homogeneous category. And the greatest problem where the most marginalized and most vulnerable are concerned are the scheduled caste women, the scheduled tribe women, and increasingly, very sadly, the minority women. The allocations for them are pathetic, absolutely, and they've been reducing. For developing my Muslim women's entrepreneurship, the last year's allocation was 10 lakhs. That is all it was for all the minority women in the entire country. Of course, transgenders don't find any place at all. There's some tiny scheme where maybe a few crores will be given to them, but there's no data also where this is concerned. One is a increase in expenditure on the infrastructure which people need. It's not highways and bridges and fast trains. It is passenger trains, it's water, it's village roads, it's slum roads, it's clean cooking energy. There's no point giving gas and if you can't afford it. If it goes up to 1,000, who can? If your family income is not even 2,000 rupees, you're not going to spend 50% of that income on getting cooking gas, which is very much there. There is also the two aspects I really think should be taken very, very seriously. Two or three. One is the entire fiscal architecture. I think, we focus on allocations a lot, but we don't talk about revenue raising. And this is something which is very essential. I think it's more, there's more than enough money. You take out all the exemptions which are given to the corporate sector, the subsidies which are given to the corporate sector. I mean, what is a scheme of internship for the top 500 companies? Convert it into a universal basic income and increase the basic wages instead of subsidizing a corporate sector, because we know profits are looming over wages. They're several times much more than the share of wages in the national economy. Also, I'm very, very, I hope very much that those who prepare the budget and those who analyze the budget reread Article 39 of the Constitution of India. Okay, it says very clearly that the distribution of resources, whether natural or created, should not create inequalities and should be for the greater common good of the people of the country. Now, if you're going to sell your national assets at subsidized rates, going to sell your CPRs, going to, liquidate all that has been created. I'm not romanticizing the past, but certainly I think it's time to try and understand what the present really holds. And in relation to this, of course, is the issue of the center-state relationships, which is very important, where the union is concerned, or the Union of India is concerned, and the budget is concerned. There's a finance commission which is sitting there. Is that the devolution of funds should not be on the basis of population, but they should be on the extent of attainment of the sustainable development goals. It's what you are doing and whether you're doing good, which should get you more finances rather than whether you're increasing mere population numbers.